Okay. Well, thanks for joining us for another Wildcat career chat with an alum. Today we have Mylan Murphy, who's the owner of Origin TD, and he's going to talk about what his experiences were like in college and what he's doing now. So Mylan, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
So let's start with your major in college. So what was your major and why did you choose that?
Yeah, so I actually went to NMU for undergrad and grad school. My undergrad major was entertainment and sports promotion. And then my grad school, my master's degree is psychology, training and development, and performance improvement. I would say, for the bachelor's degree, the reason why I chose entertainment and sports promotion, I was a basketball player at NMU. So obviously the sporting industry, entertainment industry already appealed to me, but I felt like it was something that would complement some of the previous experience that I had, under my belt. And I knew it would be something that I would enjoy. So I went the sports and entertainment route. And again, with the promotion, the marketing aspect behind it. And then for grad school, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to do something that would, be completely away from business, but at the same time complement it. So the training and development, performance improvement aspect, really hones in on, getting, whether it be individual or corporate, business, getting into it and figuring out if there's an issue, whatever that issue is, and, figuring out something to solve that issue and, evaluate it from there. So the two complement each other and they've played well, in what I'm doing now.
Cool. So when you were particularly in your undergraduate degree, what types of experiences did you have in college that you feel are, were particularly valuable to you? Internships or volunteering or?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with, volunteering. Because I was a student athlete, we always, got out in the community. We were always involved in, different activities and organizations on campus, which was great. I was a part of SAC at the time. There was 2 representatives for each sports team, and we would come together and basically just talk about different things, how we can improve campus, et cetera. Internships, I've been blessed with a number of different opportunities. I've worked with the United States Olympic Committee on numerous occasions. I've worked with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I've done some stuff for LeBron James. I've been blessed, just in the whole industry, sporting industry and the whole realm of internships. So all of those things, played a huge factor when it came to, what I was doing then, using them as stepping stones and, even to what I do now. So yeah, all of those experiences, and a lot of them derived from, just me getting close with my professors. One of my professors, who's no longer at NMU, he's retired now, but Don Rybacki, he had recommended that I do this program. It was called the Flame Program. It was for minorities, and they select 30 minorities all over the country. They select 30 of them, and they go to the Olympic Committee in Colorado Springs for basically like a conference. It's like a 5-day thing, and you network, you meet people, and that experience changed my life. And like I said, that I owe that all to Don Rybacki, who was a professor of mine. So, the internships, the practicums, whatever you call it, those are all great, but the relationships that you develop as well, they go further than that even. So that's sort of what jump-started everything for me.
That's awesome. And I wrote that down to share with students in case they are interested too. So you said the internships, you had several of them throughout your college career. How did you find that first one? What did you do? Yeah.
Internships are tricky because you have to be willing to put in work for nothing. Nobody necessarily wants to work for free. But I tell you, at the end of the day, it pays off. So I think my first internship came from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm from Akron, Ohio. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is in Cleveland, Ohio. And I remember I was applying, just trying to figure out, I really didn't have any experience of work because I've always been an athlete. I never really worked, but I was applying and they called me. And that was the first internship / job that I ever really had, and it never came from a prior connection or anything. I just applied, I put myself out there, they called me back, and I had a great time. It was a great internship. And then after that, I was able, because it was a reputable organization, I was able to use that as a stepping stone for some of the other things that I did. But that was my first one, and that sort of kick-started everything for me at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I met a lot of great people, and I experienced a lot of things, learned a lot, obviously. So that's what started that. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely encourage students to do internships, even if their major doesn't require one. And that is one of the hardest things, is trying to figure out, how do I manage this if it's not paid, so.
Exactly. I mean, it's tough, but even in that particular situation, I was commuting to Cleveland. I was paying for parking. I was paying for everything, lunch, everything. But again, the experience, it speaks so much value that you don't even necessarily realize. And it doesn't have to be at a big organization like that, just anything in general. I tell people all the time now, nothing beats work experience. I mean, you can have a great resume, you can have, all the tools, but if you haven't actually done whatever it is that you're trying to do, it's tough. So that actual on-hand experience is everything.
Sure. Okay. So kind of fast forwarding to graduation, what was the first thing you did after graduation? What was your first job?
Well, so that's where it gets a little tricky because, I graduated, I finished my undergrad, and I received a job with the USOC. I had worked the London Olympics, and then I was getting ready to work the Sochi Olympics. And it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I finished my undergrad. Do I just go into the workforce and the work field and just start right now, or do I do another internship? I was in that limbo. Even though I had my bachelor's degree, I was still, trying to figure out, what do I do next? Well, I ended up deciding I was going to go back to school to get my master's degree. And I had a grad assistantship in the communications and marketing department at that time. I know that some mergers have happened, so the names are different now, but I was a GA in the communications and marketing department. But I was also still working remotely for the United States Olympic Committee. So that was really cool, because I was able to, one, continue school, but two, also continue my work experience and pad my resume a little bit more. So I was able to work the Sochi Olympic Games. I was the U.S. contact for that in the digital media field. And then again, rewinding a little bit, when it was that, the bridging the gap, I was also working the London Games as well. So, after undergrad, I just had to make up my mind, how am I going to work, or, you know what I mean? So I tried to do the best of both worlds, where I worked a little bit remotely, but also went to school as well. So that's what I did directly after I graduated. And it just sort of kept snowballing from there.
Sure. Yeah. It's really interesting, though, that you were able to work remotely for the Olympics. So you said something about digital media. Were you doing social media postings, or?
It was a little bit of everything. So I guess to rewind even from that, after I was selected for that program back in, I think it was like 2009 or something like that. But I was selected for that program. And then after that, I made some connections. I ended up going back to Colorado that following summer, and I interned there all summer. And after that internship, then I received the first remote gig for the London Games. Now, when I was there during my internship, I was working on the mobile app, I was working on social media, I was working on the website, some video projects. So all of that is technically considered digital media, and I have been doing that from the beginning. So then when I moved back to Michigan to finish grad school, they extended the offer to me because it's digital media. Everything is done over the computer. And I already had, built a rapport with everybody in the department. So, I worked remotely for the Sochi Winter Games. And that was, again, like you mentioned, some social media posts, but mainly website and app overseeing, when they were in Russia and things like that, making those changes and updates. It was rough because of time difference. I remember times waking up at 3 a.m. just to cover the Sochi Games, but then having to go into work at 8. So yeah, I mean, it was rough, but I mean, the experience was amazing. So I wouldn't trade it for anything, but that's sort of how I juggled the two.
Yeah, I wouldn't have even thought about the time difference there, but that's a big one.
It was rough, but it was fun. It was a lot of fun. The Olympics are an amazing movement, and I've learned so much about it. And, that's definitely one of the highlights of my work past, just working with the Olympic Committee, and everybody that I met there is phenomenal.
Cool. Okay, so tell me a little bit about what you're doing now. You have your own company, and what does it do?
Yeah, I now run Origin TD. It's essentially a digital media company, but we tend to work with the corporate side and personal. So it's not your traditional, company that just does photography or videography or websites or branding, marketing, whatever. We do all of that, but again, we do it for professional athletes all the way to a small business, all the way up to a large organization. So basically a digital media company that tries to highlight our clients' brands and brings out, marketing campaigns, just anything that they're looking to have highlighted or a message they want communicated. We bring that out in various forms through videography, photography, marketing, branding, etc. So I do that now. I run that full time. I started this right after grad school. So it's been about 3 years that I've been running it full time now, and it's going great. I enjoy it. This is my baby. So I eat, sleep, breathe Origin TD, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how did you make the decision to open your own business and be an entrepreneur?
That probably was the turning point for me. It was extremely difficult. Again, going back, I've always owned a business really from the time I can remember. When I was 13, I started a clothing line. And then after that, I'm doing a bunch of different things, websites, small businesses. So I've always considered myself an entrepreneur, and I've always known that I wanted to, be an entrepreneur full time. But obviously, you go to school, you get your bachelor's degree, you get your master's degree, and, what do you do with it? Obviously, the point is to work your way up in a company, a corporation, whatever, and, establish that security. Well, once I finished grad school, I had a job with the USOC that I could take. I had, some other companies and organizations that I was talking with, but, nothing sort of beat the fact of running my own business. And it was a tough decision because I had just finished grad school, and, I could go with a reputable company and continue that, or I can step out, in a leap of faith and start my own company. And I was in Michigan at the time, obviously at NMU, and I didn't know, am I going to stay? Am I going to leave? Where do I even go next? But, I decided I was going to move back home. I moved to Cleveland at that time and start my business. Now I'm in Akron, not too far away, but, it's been the best decision I could have made. It was hard. I'm not going to say it was easy. But yeah, making that decision after you graduated, with your master's to, okay, I'm not going to put that stuff to use. I'm just going to start my own business was tough. And, I encourage anybody that's obviously thinking about doing that to do it. And again, you don't have to wait until after. You can do it now. But that was sort of how I made the decision. It was just like, you know what? Now's the time. I got to go full force with it. So just trusted in myself and believed in the process.
Well, you said something that caught me, which was you were talking about putting your master's aside and going for your own business. But I'm guessing there were some things that you learned in your master's that you were.
Oh gosh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, education is everything. Even still, even when you're not in school, education is still the base, the foundation of everything. I learn every day on my job. But yeah, my master's program taught me so much. My undergrad taught me so much. Again, just the simple fact of working with the people, my colleagues, the professors, etc. But I feel like grad school is so directed, in terms of whatever it is that you're trying to study, it's so directed. You just gain knowledge every single class that you have because it's so directed. There's no prereqs or things like that. You get straight into it, and you take in so much. You're a sponge in grad school. But yeah, in terms of the presentations, in terms of the thesis, the good, bad, and the ugly, learned so much during grad school. And yeah, I wouldn't have been, personally, I don't think I would have been ready after undergrad to start my business full time. So grad school allowed me to mature a little bit more. And I think it just gave me that confidence that, okay, now I have some more educational credentials behind me. Now I can actually do this because I've learned some of the tools as far as, how this goes and how the workplace works and et cetera. So yeah, absolutely. Grad school definitely taught me a lot.
Sure. Okay, so what's your typical day look like now?
Honestly, that's part of the beauty that I like. Every day is
Mhm.
different. One day I might be filming something. Another day I might be editing. One day I might just be sending out emails, making phone calls. It literally is different every single time. And the flexibility I love. I've recently done some Nike commercials. I mean, it's just been so cool to be flexible. I mean, one day I might start my day at 5 a.m. Next day, I might start it at 11 a.m. I might start at 5 p.m. It's just you
Mhm.
just have the flexibility, which is nice. But that's the thing about being an entrepreneur. Every day is different, and that's what I really truly enjoy. So to answer your question, every day is different.
Mhm.
So it's hard to say exactly what the workday looks like. But in some days, you don't work. I mean, it's
Mhm.
just literally every day truly is different, which is nice.
Sure. Okay, so what's your favorite thing about what you're doing?
Favorite thing about what I'm doing? Definitely the work schedule, what we just
Mhm.
highlighted on. Let's see. I think, honestly, just the fact of knowing that I'm doing something that I created and, the challenge behind it. Again, it's not easy, but I accept the challenges that it brings. And I really like that. Every day, I like waking up knowing, okay, how am I going to conquer today? How am I going to get, my business name out there? How am I going to, acquire more clients, or how am I going to reach, X audience? So as weird as it sounds, I think one of my favorite things about it is the challenge. I just love the
Mhm.
challenge of, knowing that there's no security. When you're self-employed, you don't have a guaranteed check coming in every, I mean, you do to a
Mhm.
certain extent if you acquire certain, residual clients. But other than that, I really embrace the challenges.
Mhm. Okay, so flip side of that, what's your least favorite thing?
Least favorite thing. Let's see. Well, I don't have, benefits, things of that nature.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the typical things that come with, any traditional job, the benefits, again, the set paycheck, things like that. At times, if business is slow, that can be a negative. It can be a con, but again, I take that as a challenge, because then I turn it around and say, okay, well, since I don't have a guaranteed check, how can I do this or how can I do that? And I know that there's no ceiling. So um, I embrace that challenge, but
Mhm.
that'll probably be the negative, the downside, I guess. There's a lot of legwork you have to put in when you're trying to build
Mhm.
something on your own from the beginning. People may not know about you. So how do you get yourself out there? There's a lot
Mhm.
of obstacles that you have to hurdle, but, nothing that nobody can take care of. So
Mhm.
I would say that would be the con, I guess, if you had to say
Okay.
one. Yeah.
Okay, so you kind of talked about it, but there was something that you mentioned at the beginning. When you're talking about how you picked your original undergraduate degree, the sports promotion. You
Mhm.
said kind of previous experiences. So, was there something that you were doing in high school that made you think about what you wanted to do, or?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely.
Mhm.
That's a great question. I think in high school, I was definitely trying to prepare myself for college and,
Mhm.
for, what I wanted to do professionally. I knew I was going to go obviously play basketball in college, but at the same
Mhm.
time, I know that basketball wouldn't last forever and I needed to have a backup plan. So
Mhm.
in high school, there was a number of things. I would throw parties, which is technically marketing, um,
Mhm.
event planning.
Mhm.
I had my clothing line, so that was sales,
Mhm.
digital media. I mean, I had websites. So a lot of things that I did in high school, I did a lot of motivational speaking. Um,
Mhm.
a lot of things that I did in high school, I just sort of figured, okay, I love doing all these things, even though they're not full time, but how can I mesh it all together and
Mhm.
turn it into something? So when I got to college, when I went to NMU, I felt like, sports and entertainment promotion was just very, obviously hand in hand with what I was doing, but it
Mhm.
was just very universal. Even if it wasn't the sporting industry or the entertainment industry, that promotional aspect you use in anything that you do. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you have to promote it. So that was great, a great base for me just in terms of business. I didn't want to do, traditional business route, but I wanted to do something with a little spin that I could just sort of turn into something different. So.
I think that's helpful for students, maybe to think about all of those little things that they like to do, not necessarily little, but all of those different aspects of things they like to do, and how can I combine this together to make myself happy? Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I always suggest doing what you love, or, something you like, but like you just said, I mean, if you can piece together a few different things, even if let's just say you're a graphic designer, well, you don't have to go to college to be a graphic designer. If you're already talented in that area, maybe you go study a different industry, a different field to complement what you're doing. So it just makes you more solid. It strengthens your, abilities, and you don't necessarily have to zone in on one thing. Like you said, you can piece together a few different things and, make it into one that's really powerful. So.
Cool. Okay. So if things were to fall into place how you'd like them to, what do you think your future holds?
Honestly, I would love to be one of the, the largest digital media companies in the country. I have a lot of different plans and visions with Origin TD. Obviously right now, I have a team of interns that I have and a couple of workers, but it's small. But the concept that I have is extremely large, and I think that it can, spread very quickly. Again, there's not really any industry that we don't work with. So, in terms of flexibility, we can work with anybody. Everybody needs this type of service right now, especially with digital media and social media and technology. It grows so rapidly. So it's always important to keep up with those trends and to brand yourself properly. But yeah, I think ideally I couldn't give you a time frame, because it could happen at any point. It could happen tomorrow. It can happen in 5 years. But I think, the goal would be to be one of the, the larger emerging digital media companies in the country.
Oh, I like hearing about dreams. That's why.
Yeah, you have to dream big. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. Yeah, for sure. You have to dream big.
Okay. So I've got two last questions for you, and they're kind of similar. The first one is, what do you wish you had known about before you graduated?
Just in general, or?
Yeah, just in general. Is there anything that you wish you had thought about before you graduated? Maybe a class that you wish you had taken, or something you wish you had maybe gotten involved with?
That's a really good question. Something I wish I would have known before I graduated. See, and for me, it's sort of cheating, because I was able to come back another 2 years, so I learned a lot that second time around too. Honestly, I think for me, and this was to a certain extent, because again, being involved, with athletics, you're extremely consumed with your time. But the athletic program does a great job of getting you involved. But I think, if anything, I would have wished that I could have just taken a step back and actually took in everything else that was going on around me. Sometimes I got so consumed in basketball and, in school, that was all I did. But there were especially at NMU, there's so much stuff. There's so many organizations. There's so much stuff to do. I just think it's important there, especially, to take time away and just enjoy your environment. There's nothing like Northern. It's literally one of a kind. And I just think it's important to just embrace everything that's around you, because once you leave there, you realize, like, wow, I was really at a special place. And I can say, like I said, I was able to cheat a little bit when I went to grad school, but when I came back, I definitely had a bucket list that, I checked off some things that I wanted to do in the UP specifically and at Northern that I was able to do, which I'm extremely glad that I revisited some of those things that I missed out in my undergrad.
Cool. Okay, so the last question then is kind of similar. If you could give one piece of advice to a graduating NMU student, what would you suggest? Whether it's, about being in school or being in the world of work, what would you give them?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I lived by, and this was probably since I've been a teenager, there's a phrase that you're going to know when I tell you, but I have a twist to it that I like to hear. And that I like to apply but it's not, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, I agree with that, but to a certain extent, I think it's not what you know, it's not who you know, but it's who knows you. And I say that to say, as a graduate, for any type of advice that I could give, you could be, Bill Gates, you could be whoever, but if nobody knows you, it doesn't really matter. So I think the biggest thing is getting yourself out there, putting yourself out there, making sure people know who you are, because you can have all the credentials in the world, you can have all the talent in the world, but nobody's just going to run across you. And yeah, you might know everybody. I have a huge network of people that I have and know personally, but again, I had to put myself out there for that network to be of any use. So I think it's not what you know, it's not who you know, but it's who knows you. And if you apply that concept and really put yourself out there, I think it'll do you a world of wonders. So that's probably the best piece of advice I could give a graduate, especially who's looking for a job or trying to branch off and do their own thing.
What's your favorite way to put yourself out there and have people know you?
In terms of a favorite way, I have to come back to that. But I would say the biggest thing is just getting over the fear. A lot of people think, if I put myself out there, am I making myself look like X or Y? Well, you just have to get over the fear and understand that you have to do this for yourself, and nobody's going to do it for you. You have to get it done. So that being said, I've done a lot of different things that I could think of, now just sort of rewinding back when I was an undergrad, but I put together a portfolio, and I had a digital copy, I had a printout, and it was probably 20 pages, had my resume, had my cover letter, had different screenshots of articles that I may have been in, had different pieces of work that I've done, had testimonials, which are huge, and then it had references. But anyways, I had a packet, I mailed it out. Even if it wasn't a job that I was applying for, just a particular company or person that I wanted to, again, know who I was, I mailed it out, and that did amazing things for me. I sent it out via email. So obviously when I say, make sure people know you, that includes everything: mail, email, phone, text. Any type of way that you can get yourself out there, I would suggest doing it. Don't get so caught up in technology. Nowadays people just sort of hide behind a phone or a computer, but don't be afraid to approach somebody. Don't be afraid to walk in the door and, actually shake somebody's hand, because a lot of people are still old fashioned and that's what they like. So, literally when I say put yourself out there, I mean it in every way. So.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. You've had some really great advice and some great information, and I can't wait to share this with students.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me know if you ever need anything from me, and I hope it was helpful, and I thank you for having me on the show. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.